You're on part 5 of Introduction to Adobe Illustrator Vector Drawing. In this tutorial, we're going to create a new look for our vector piece. So we're not really going to add anything. We're going to convert what we already have to more of a gradient fall off than a hard line element. And it'll still be vector artwork, so it could still be scaled. Now, if you're running a really old version of Illustrator, you won't be able to do this tutorial because they never added the filters that we're going to use. So you can go ahead and quit here and continue drawing out vector pieces, but for those of us who are running newer versions of Illustrator, you should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and start with the highlighted areas. So let me go ahead and lock the shadow layer and unlock the highlight layer. I'm going to take my zoom tool and zoom in here. And I'm going to take my black arrow tool, select a highlighted area. I'm going to come up to Effect, go all the way down to this area here. Now these are kind of like Photoshop effects that you can apply to vector items. So we're going to go to Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now in this menu, you'll notice that it's already set to a certain amount, but nothing happened in the viewport, and that's because we have to check Preview. And you can see here the blur is applied, so I can adjust it by grabbing the slider left and right, or I can manually type in a number. And let's try something like, let's go 17. Click OK. Now when I click off of it, you can really see that it's added a nice soft blur to the element, giving a nice soft look compared to the hard look of these vector shapes. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and keep applying that. You'll notice down here in Appearance, this is where you can actually see the filter applied. And again, this is non-destructive, meaning that I can actually select it and delete it if I want. So it will get rid of it. Yep, let me select the item, click on Gaussian Blur, and hit delete. There we go. So you'll notice that it went away. And of course, let me go ahead and undo that, Control Z. You'll notice that even as the effect is applied, it's still a vector shape where I can adjust the shape itself. So I'm not stuck after I've applied it. It's a very nice feature. Now if I want to adjust the effect, I can actually click on the word here or double click on the layer, either or. And you can see here that I get the effect settings again. Just make sure you turn on preview when you readjust it. Otherwise you won't see anything and be like, oh, why am I not seeing anything? It happens to me a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And of course I can just hide the effect if I want to jump back and forth to viewing how the effect looks. Okay, so let me go ahead and apply this to multiple pieces. So I can select multiple areas and go up to Effect. Now you'll notice here at the top I have Apply Gaussian Blur, Shift Control E, and then Gaussian Blur Alt Shift Control E. So the one will just automatically apply it and the other one will bring up the settings again. So just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and apply it, and you can see it didn't open up a window, it just applied the effect. And I'm going to Control Z that and go to Effect, Gaussian Blur, and it'll bring up the settings window again where I can choose Preview and manually adjust it. So that's pretty cool. You can apply it to multiple objects. Now I think it's too much to these elements here, so let me select this one, go into the settings, turn on Preview, and drag it back down. I think 4 is good there, and this one I'm going to bring down to, let's say, 7. Okay, so that's much better for those pieces, and I think this one maybe a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. So let me go ahead and zoom back out, and why did my Gaussian blur up here disappear? Oh yeah, I forgot to turn it back on. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm going to bring this one up as well. There we go. Okay, so pretty cool stuff, and that's what you can do to each one of these elements. And again, like I said, since the effect has been applied, the settings have been stored, so I can go Effect, Apply Gaussian Blur, and I can go in here and adjust it if I think it needs more blur. And this one's probably too much, so let's bring it down a little bit. And that one's fine. All right, so that's what we're going to go through and do. I'm going to go ahead and just speed through the tutorial now because it's repeat process for all these elements. I don't think there's any other highlight. Oh, there are a couple of highlight areas. Actually, let's talk about, before I speeding through, let's talk about hard edge areas that you want to keep in hard edge too. And I know that some of these elements I was masking, for example, this side shadow here. So let me go ahead and lock this. First, let's go ahead and save, File, Save. Let's unlock the side shadow area. So if you'll notice here, side shadow, unlock. I'm going to go ahead and click here. So you'll notice that we've already applied a mask to it. This mask was cut out this side right here, but we need the mask to form to the nose. And the reason for this is if I go ahead and go Effect, let's go down to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and let's just go Preview. You'll notice that the blur kind of fades over the nose a little bit here, and I don't want it to fit over the nose. I need it to be cut off, just like it is cut off here on the side of the face. That's what the mask allowed it to happen, to keep this solid. Well, I need to keep it solid over the nose because I don't want the shadow to be over the nose. It stops at the nose. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Cancel. And with this element selected, I'm actually going to click the Release button here. And you can see here, this white area is the mask area. So I'm going to click off and click on the mask. And I'm going to use my white arrow tool to grab some of these points. Whoops. There we go. Move this one over. I think I'm going to move this one and move this one and move this one. That might be enough. We'll see. Okay, so let's zoom in. I'm going to go ahead and take this one and position it. And I'm, of course, following the shadow that's there. So let's go ahead and turn off Fill for right now. And it looks like that was pretty much spot on. There we go. Let's move this one to here. Let's pull this back. Holding down Alt on the keyboard will allow me to adjust one anchor point side at a time instead of multiple. Okay, and it looks like I definitely need another. So let me use the space bar to maneuver over to this point, grab this, and pull it back over. Oops. Probably put it right about here. And I'm going to hold down Alt, pull this up, something like this. There we go. So that's probably good right there. And let me go ahead and adjust this one way up here. So this will go, let's say, right about here. Something like that. That should work. Okay, so let's reapply the white. And it's a very good idea that you reapply the light before you deselect it, because you might be able to select it again. You might not be able to select it again, just because of nothing will be visible, the outline or the fill. So now that that's done, let me go ahead and select this element and go ahead and use my white arrow tool, or in this where you can click and move, or you can use this tool here and do the same thing. Grab these points and kind of move them inwards. Oops. I don't want to create extra points, which it seems to be wanting to do. Okay, so I'm just going to use my white arrow tool. Oh, that's why. That was kind of all wonky there. So let's go ahead and pull this in. And something like that will probably be good. So it gives me extra space so it doesn't blur back this way, revealing stuff underneath it. Definitely don't want that. And I think that's probably good. So let's go ahead and select this and the mask again, holding down Shift. Both of them are selected. And go Make Mask. And voila. Now it's got the nose cut out perfectly like it was before. However, when we go ahead and apply the filter effect, let's see, let's make sure we got it selected. Just this, not the mask as well. And we're going to go Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And click Preview. See how much we want it to blur. And you can see I've got a nice soft edge going on. Let me unpreview it. And a hard edge on this side and a hard edge on the nose. So let me bring this down just a bit. It doesn't need to be so sharp or so soft. something like that. Click OK. Okay, so you can see here that really softened out the side of the face, but it kept the nose area sharp and the side of the face sharp. So that's how you control the fall off or the sharpness of the shadow when you don't want it to be soft. So I can come back to the jaw area. Let's see, let's go ahead and lock this. Let's see, the jaw is on, it should be on shadows. I guess not. Let me unlock, oh, right here, shadow jaw. Okay, let's unlock that. Click on it. And it does not have a mask. So this one we're going to want to create a mask along the jaw area because we don't want it to fall off. Let's go ahead and just apply the effect. Let's just go apply Gaussian blur. Yeah, see it's fallen off down here. We definitely don't want that. So let me come over here and delete it. Oops, I gotta have it selected. There we go. Okay, so on this layer, in fact, actually what I'm gonna do is create a new layer above it for right now and lock it. And let's go ahead and quickly draw out a mask for it. So pen tool. I could possibly grab the base layer, but then I would have to readjust it along the jaw, so it's probably just faster to redraw this. So let's go all the way to here and just draw a mask in the shape of the jaw. Let's see here, let's go there. Let's turn off fill for now, because we're going to want to make the fill white. And there. And that should be good. I can actually, let me click here to create a hard edge so I can follow along the ear a little bit. And that should be good. So then I can just wrap around the ear, because I don't care if it blurs off into the ear. And I need it to be able to blur off into the face. So let's just wrap this around. And done. Okay. And let's go ahead and change the fill to a white. Click OK. And I can come up here real quick. I'm going to make it go away one more time. Let me adjust this a little bit better. All right, so let me zoom out here and refill it. So with it selected, turn the fill back on, and let's unlock the jaw layer. So I can drag select over both, making sure everything else is locked. So I just have these two layers, and let's go make mask. All right, and we can delete this layer now. It's an empty layer. Mask is made. Now I want to adjust this element. So let's go ahead and use any one of these tools to start pulling these points this way. Okay, so something like that. That should be good. I can even pull these. I'm going to leave that there. Okay, but I am going to hold down Alt and drag that way. So you can see here it's still holding the shape because of the mask layer. Let's go ahead and go to Effect, apply Gaussian blur. And it's still too much, so let's go ahead and turn it down a bit. Let's go preview. There we go. So let's bring it up just a bit. Yeah, that's much better. Nice soft edge, and then the jawline is still hard. And of course I can come in here, I'm going to click OK. And I can adjust, oops, Control Z. Go to my wide arrow tool, click on these points and pull them back a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Let me readjust this so it's not creating some weird hard highlight. Okay, so let's go ahead and click off of it, and voila. And that's basically what you're going to do. So anytime you need to control a hard edge, you're going to make sure there's a mask applied. And anytime you don't need a mask, you just blur the layer. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on, and I'm going to just stop talking and fast forward the action I'm about to do. I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. I'm going to fast forward from here on out as you're watching me do the rest of these pieces. If I find anything different that I haven't shown you so far, I will stop and go back through and explain it. So let me go ahead and continue. As you can see, it's created a much softer look. In fact, it's actually almost created like a Photoshop paint look. Let me go ahead and zoom out here. There's a few things I can still tweak. In fact, actually, if I look in here, I don't like what's going on. And I believe this is the side shadow. Yep. So let's go ahead and unlock that. And it's because, I think it's because of the mask. So let's select the mask layer. Okay, so with this selected over here and the mask layer selected, now I should be able to grab another point. Let's say this one and drag it over. Something like that. I don't want to go too far into the forehead, but definitely want to alleviate that weird look that was going on. So let me go ahead and click off of it. And it's better. Not 100% perfect, but definitely better. In fact, actually, we could add it. No, I was about to say we can add a blur to the map as well, but I don't think that would solve anything. So let's take the actual shadow itself, pull it down a bit. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so that is the pretty much the way of creating this whole new look, and it's still, like I said, vector, so it can be scaled up indefinitely and still have this great look. Now, when you're doing this particular style, it leads you to do more with the actual painting, vector drawing, I should say. It's not really painting, but it's vector drawing, and that is that we can start sampling in more colors. So let me go ahead and lock this layer, and let me hide everything except for the reference image. All right, so we have this nice soft kind of like light blue tapping the side of the face here and on the back of the neck here. So we can start adding those extra highlights. You can go in and add a little bit extra highlight in the chin and maybe even some extra shadows here and there to really start pulling this work out. So just as an example, let me go ahead and unhide everything else. And like I said, I want to tap in a nice light blue into the side of the face here, and maybe in the back of the neck. So I'm going to start with taking the base layer and I'm going to make a duplicate. Okay, so here's a base copy. And let me go ahead and move this above. Let me go to the highlights layer. Okay, and let me create a new layer just above the highlights layer because it's going to be a new type of highlight. So extra lighting. Okay, so for right now, I'm going to take the base copy and I'm going to hide it. I'm going to take the extra highlighting layer and let's just dry out some extra little bit of lighting that's going to bounce off the side here. In fact, let me delete this. Okay, let me hide everything else below it so I can really see where it's falling. So I got a little bit right here. So I'm going to actually change the fill for this to, let's go more into the blue, white, something like that. And now I can come in here and just kind of tap a little bit of extra. And it's probably going to be really thin along the eye. Just a very thin amount. Probably something like that. Okay. And then, let's see, is there anything else? I mean, a little bit. You can probably tap a little bit along the chin here, but just to show you how this is going to work. So I have this layer. Let's go ahead and unlock and unhide the base layer. Let's select it and change it to white. And let's select both and go ahead and do make mask. All right, and then with this layer selected, let's go Effect, Gaussian Blur, Preview. I'm going to really dial it up. Click OK. And let me unhide everything below it. And you can see here, let me hide the reference image so we can just focus on this. You can see here the nice effect that it applied to the side here. And I'm getting a weird anti-aliasing. Is that from this layer? Yeah, kind of. It's kind of extenuating the anti-aliasing from the side shadow is getting some crazy anti-aliasing issues. Interesting. That could also be my graphics card. It's been a while since I've seen that. Anyway, moving forward. So you can see it added this extra little bit of lighting onto the face, which is pretty cool. And of course, I can go through. Let me delete this extra base layer that I had. And let's go back into being able to modify this. Let's grab this, maybe pull it up this way and pull these in a little bit. So it's just really barely tapping the side of the face. All right, so that's pretty cool. I can repeat this process, like I said, over on the back side of the neck. Let's go ahead and hide everything else. Unhide here. You can see here a little bit like in here if I wanted to. Might as well. So on the extra lighting layer, let me just kind of tap a little bit this way. I'll bring it up. Just like that. Let's take the base layer again, duplicate. Take this base, put it above extra highlight layer, unlock it, unhide it, oops, there we go, and select it, make sure it turns to white. And let's select this piece, make mask, can delete this layer, can go to this piece here, let me click off, click back on, Effect, apply Gaussian blur. Turn everything else back on. All right, so it's just adding a little bit of extra to it, which is really nice. So let me just go ahead and hide all this again. Something like that. So there's a little bit, see, it's pretty cool because you can add a little bit of extra lighting into the neck area here. So let's go ahead and go back to my extra lighting. And I'm going to go extra lighting. So this mask I'm going to have to tweak in 2 directions. So let's just go ahead and create it first. This one's going to kind of be along here. Okay, take the base layer again. In fact, actually, I don't really need to draw out a whole new base layer. So let me just go to Extra Lighting, click the new tab, and let me lock this one real quick to make sure I'm not drawing on it, and hide Extra Lighting. So I want to focus on along the neck. In fact, whoops, and along the jaw. Okay, change this to white. There we go. And unlock Extra Lighting. Drag select over both. Make mask. Did I not have the Extra Lighting selected? Doesn't look like it. Oh, did I? There we go. Okay. Make mask. There we go. All right, so now that we have that put in place, just like anything else, effect, Gaussian blur, should be good. And let's go ahead and unhide everything. Now you can see here, I should have actually done my drawing based off of my vector piece. So let's go ahead and fix this. Let's click on mask right here. And click on these points and start fixing. Ugh. There we go. It's fighting me. If you come up here, you can apply a smooth tangent point to really adjust. Okay. So that's definitely better. Probably pull this down just a bit. And you can see, let me come out of this. Let's click back on the main, unhide everything. And it's adding a little extra depth. And I can probably drop a little bit of light. It doesn't really look like I need to, but if I wanted to, I can drop a little bit of light along the jaw right here. Almost looks like it's getting that now. So yes, it's a pretty cool way of really making this pop as a whole different look as opposed to the straight vector look. And like I said, it still is vector. And I think, to be honest, like I said, you can go through, let me just hide all this, and really start playing with adding various different levels of highlights and colors in here. You're not limited to the amount that we've applied. Go ahead and delete this. And I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. I think that's where I'm going to call it a day for this particular piece. I think I'm going to do a part 7, and I'm going to show you how to do, or sorry, part 6. And I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of a different style than this. Now, using this new method, the blurring, you can probably add more detail to the lips as well. If I hide all this, you'll notice that her lips, oops, I'm now messing with my layer order. Okay, so her lips have got some extra detail in here. You could go through and add that with this extra lighting and blur effect, some highlights on the lip area. I think that would be nice right here. In fact, actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and take the lip, go new layer. Make sure everything else is locked so I don't accidentally. And let's go ahead and hide everything. So there's a highlight layer here. Let's change this to white. And I could even create these subtle highlights over here as well if I wanted to. But for right now, this is good. And I'm going to go ahead and bring everything back, effect, apply Gaussian blur. It's way too much. Something like that. And let's keep going. Can probably hit a little bit of a highlight area along the bridge of the lip here. Let me bring my lips back. If I wanted to, I might bring some extra lip out. So let's go ahead and take our pen tool. Everything else is locked. Just along this upper area. Something like, in fact, actually, let's do that area. And what I'm going to do is take the lips layer, duplicate it. In fact, actually, I don't need the whole lips layer, so let me just select this and create a new layer. Control C, Control V. And I think I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit Shift Control V, and that pastes it in place. So Shift Control V, paste in place, and that is more of a newer thing in this newer version of Illustrator. I don't think you can do that in the old one. So okay, so this is my mask layer. Let me drag it above. I'm going to call this Lips Highlights. Okay, and let's go ahead and lock everything else for right now. Select the two and apply mask. All right, so then you just need to apply the blur. Of course, adjust it. And that brings out an extra element to the lips. Probably do a little bit over here and call it a day. So, not too sure I actually like that one. But anyway, just to show you how this effect can work, and it really helps add to the whole element. In fact, actually, this highlight's driving me nuts, so let me just get rid of it. Let's finish out the lips, actually. So I'm going to zoom in here. And let's go ahead and hide everything below the lips. Whoops, click and drag, just like that. In fact, I'm going to take the lips layer itself. Don't need to hide them for right now. Yeah, I think for right now I'm going to hide it. Okay, so let's go back to lips highlights. And I'm going to lighten out this area right here. Probably get this little highlight and this little highlight going on. So let's go ahead and take the pen tool. I'll start with this little area here. And something like that. So I'm going to take this one and let me sample a lighter pink area. Probably make it a little bit lighter. That's good. And go Effect, Blur, Gaussian blur. Let me preview it. This one I do want to be a little bit more wide. Okay, something like that. I'm going to click OK. Now what I'm going to do is unhide the lips layer. I'm going to modify it. In fact, actually I'm going to mask it because I can see it's falling off the upper and lower lip. So let's go ahead and unlock the lips layer. Click this, Control C, go up to this blank layer here, Shift Control V to paste it in place. And I'm just going to check here. There is a copy and paste in place right here, just in case you don't have a shortcut key access. Forgot to mention this earlier. Okay, so anyway, we've pasted it in place. Let's go ahead and lock the lips layer again so we can drag select over both. Whoops. All right, so that's the highlight layer. Let's shift click the lips layer. In fact, actually I gotta turn this to a white for the mask. Now we can try to drag select over both. There we go. And let's go ahead and make mask. And now we know it's contained in here, so now we know we can modify it. And I can also play with the opacity of this layer. If I think it's still too harsh, I can bring it down to soften it out. So that's another way to control your vector layers. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's jump over to the highlights here. So let's go ahead and hide that, and I'm on the highlight layer. I'm going to actually keep my lips visible, but what I'm going to do is lower the opacity for right now on my lips layer. So let me select these two and just bring it down just so I can see their shape, but also see the highlights. Let me bring it up just a bit more. Okay, go back to my highlights layer, lock lips, and come to here. And I think what I'm going to do is use a mask for this top one, so I can just do this. Go ahead and unlock the lips layer. Duplicate this, Control C, and come up to this layer, Shift Control V. Make sure I set the opacity to 100. Change the color to white. Select both. Make mask. Okay, so with this, I'm going to go ahead and go Effect, Gaussian Blur. Probably bring it down a bit. There we go. And this highlight right here. I'm going to go ahead and go Effect, Gaussian Blur. Okay, so this one's got too much blur on it, so let's go ahead and modify it. That's better. Okay, so those are the highlights, the primary highlights for right now. I might add some more later, but let's go ahead and start focusing on, let me see here. Probably can add an overall highlight to here, but I think what I'm going to do is leave it for now and start doing shadows. So I'm going to go back to my lips layer, let's turn it on and set these back to 100%. Okay, and lock it and hide it for now. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is actually apply my shadows to the lips layer itself, because I'm going to have the upper lip cover a lot of these base shadows. So for right now though, I am going to create a new layer. I can delete this one. Actually, instead of deleting it, I'm going to move it down. So this is going to be my mask, temporary mask holder. And this is going to be something I'm going to get rid of because I'm going to combine the shadows into the lips. So let's go ahead and take the pen tool, start drawing out some shadow areas. I'm going to sample a little bit darker area. Yeah, something like that. And what I'm going to do is use the base lip as a mask. Not Control X, Control C, Shift Control V. And again, rinse and repeat like we've done before. Make it white, select them both, make mask, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to move this to the lips layer. All right, and then I can either open up the layer here and choose the layer order, or I can right click and go arrange and let's say send backwards. All right, and you can see here this changed position. I can even call this shadow, and we'll call this lower lip. Upper lip. Okay, so now I can go to the shadow and let's go Effect, Gaussian Blur. Let's bring this up a bit. It's probably too much on the effect. There we go. So that's looking nice. So let's go ahead and minimize this, hide the lips layer. So I'm going to do, there's a slight shadow on the upper lip area here. So let's go ahead and take the pen tool and start drawing out this shadow. Again, I'm going to use the upper lip as a mask. And let's go ahead and fill it, but this time it's not going to be as dark. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And let's go ahead and unhide this layer. Again, like I said, I want to use the upper lip as a mask. Control C, Shift Control V. Set it to white. And select both. Oops. Ugh, it's fighting me. Set this back to white. All right, let me lock the lips layer and lock the highlight layer. There we go. And make mask. And let's go ahead and move this down to the lips layer. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the blur effect, Gaussian blur. Preview it. Probably bring it down just a bit. Click OK. And there we have that shape. It's probably a little bit too dramatic right here in this bump area, so just modify it a little bit. Okay, so you can see that we're really starting to form out the lips. Yeah, I think that's really starting to form this area out. So let's go ahead and hide the lips again. And we can probably do a very light shadow right here on the inside. So let's go ahead and go back to this layer. And just like we've done before, and let's go ahead and drag it to the lips layer. Let me unlock the lips layer. So again, grabbing the color box, dragging it down, and then the order, this I needed below the upper lip. What was this? This is the upper lip shadow, so and this is lower. Shadow 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the effect. And there we have it. Now actually I want this one below the first shadow. There we go. In fact, I'm going to make that first shadow. If I can select it, there we go. I'm going to make this one a bit darker. There we go. Okay. All right, so you can see here, now we've got the two shadows going on. This one I think I'm gonna probably make a little bit darker. Okay, there we go. So you can see here I'm really starting to form out the lips. In fact, let's see here, is there anything else I want to focus on for right now? I'm actually going to go ahead and start bringing this highlight, which we have on lips highlights. I'm going to start combining everything down to one layer. So bring this to the lips layer, bring this to the lip layer. I think this was on, so I don't think there's anything. Oops, this guy's still left. So let's bring this one to the lips layer. Do we need this anymore? Nope. Can get rid of that layer. Okay, so we're really starting to combine it all out. Let's take a look here. I can probably do a little bit of shadowing right here if I wanted to. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to make it, let's go ahead and sample a darker area because it's a shadow, not a highlight. And let's go to lips layer. This is going to be a mask of the top one. So Control C, Shift Control V, set this to white, select these two pieces, make mask, and I'll just move it to the lips layer. And let's go ahead and go Effect, Gaussian Blur. Let's bring this one up a bit. Okay. That's probably not dark enough, so let's bring it down a little bit more. There we go. And looking at it, I probably could fill it out just a little bit further, so let's go ahead and take this wide arrow tool. That's probably good. Okay, so you're starting to see the shapes really come out. All right, is there really anything else that I want to tap into the lips? All right, probably put in a little bit of a shadow here, and then I think I'm going to call it a day with the lips. So let's go ahead and hide this. Take the pen tool. Back to taking the lower lip, Control C, paste in place, change the color, select both, mask, and drag and drop onto this. I'm actually going to bring this layer all the way down. There we go. And of course, Effect, Gaussian Blur. This one I'm going to bring up a lot. Click OK. All right, so that's adding the extra shadow here. And probably do the same, a little bit of a shadow here. Okay, so that's the last one, I promise, on the lips. So a little bit of a shadow running up. And I actually don't want to apply that directly to the shadow layer or the lips layer yet, just in case I have issues selecting things. Select them both and make mask. Now I'll move it down, and I'll move it probably down to here. It's too far. This needs to be above upper lip. There we go. And Effect, apply Gaussian Blur. There we go. That's looking better. Okay, so you're starting to see the shape of the lips really come out. And of course you can keep playing with it, keep adding shadows, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and move on because I really need to tweak a bunch of stuff in this before I go to the next tutorial. So I'm going to lock the lips layer for right now. I can get rid of these two layers, don't need them anymore. And let's start bringing everything back. Actually, before I start bringing everything back, I already know I want to start adding shadow areas to the eyes. So let's focus on the eye area. Now, because it's a rinse and repeat, I'm going to go ahead. In fact, actually, the only thing I'm going to show you, let me unhide everything, is I don't like the color of this and this. So I'm going to select, let's see, this was side shadow. Yep. So it's this one I need to unlock and shadow jaw, those two. Okay. So I'm going to select the side shadow and I'm going to definitely change the color. Definitely don't like the color. So let's bring it back up a little bit. Click OK. And that's a little bit better. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe putting a little bit more pink into it. There's just too much, and that's so much better. You can see how that blends so much more. So let's go ahead and take this guy and just sample that. And I'm going to go ahead and blur this one more. So let's go ahead and go to Gaussian Blur. Bring this up a little bit more. There we go. So that's, oh man, it was so obtruse before. that it was starting to really bother me. But now it's blended much better into the face. And of course I can lower the opacity level and all that to really blend it, but I like that more, the way we have it. So from here on out, what I'm going to do is fast forward, but basically I'm going to be doing is the shadows in the eyes. Let me go ahead and save this. Well, actually, let me just lock these two layers real quick and hide a bunch of these layers. Okay, so I'm going to do the shadows right here in the eyelids, back here. I'm going to do more highlighting tweaks, put a little bit of shadows in here, probably a little more shadowing work on the side of the face here, and then a highlight area here, and probably drop a little more shadow right here to really just bring the rest of this face out to add more detail. And again, I'm going to fast forward this because I don't want to waste your time in watching the, it's the same repeat tools, it's the same skills. I just want to show you the process as I'm going along. Okay, so you can see that adding some extra highlights and shadows really pull out the face, give you a lot more detail. And of course, you can continue to add shadows and highlights to your heart's content. I'm actually going to zoom in here real quick and modify a few things. I don't like this shadow here. I think it's too strong. So let me dive into the color, maybe pull the color up a bit. And I'm going to lower the opacity. Yeah, something like that. That definitely blends it in a lot better. And let me grab this one right here, and I'm just going to lower its opacity And I'll probably do the same thing. Let me lock the highlights layer and lower this opacity. Okay. So, like I said, this is kind of a final result. Of course, I can keep adding and adding and adding to get better and better results. But for this particular tutorial, I think I'm going to call it good. Go ahead and join me for part 6. And what we're going to do is flatten all these layers out and maybe make a document that's more of a magazine cover, showing you some of the text tools and a few other things in here. So you got a more of a roundabout understanding of all the tools in Illustrator. Not all of them, but most of them. Is there anything else I want to cover for this one? Nope, that should be it. So go ahead and join me for part 6.